So my name is Roman Vaivod. I'm a full stack developer in Salsita. And today's title of the brown book is Why Continuous Integration Contradicts Feature Branches. So whenever we work on something together, we always need to think how we're going to organize our work. And one of the problems that we need to solve is once we start, we need to divide the whole big task into smaller tasks that everybody, each one of us, gonna work on. And but once we've done the work, we actually need to somehow merge those changes so that it will become whole and will actually make some sense. So, for example, here I have an example. have a design a house task, and we have Alice and Bob, and yeah, they want to do something with it. So Alice decided to start working on the roof, and Bob does the rest. And when they merge their changes, merge their work, then Alice puts the roof on the top. And yeah, it seems to be like a good solution at the end. But the problem is that it may not work all the time well, and sometimes it can work even worse than I expected. So basically, the roof goes on the bottom, right? And not on the top as it should be. So something happens wrong on the integration step when we try to integrate the changes. So one of the strategies to solve it is something called feature branching. Is very common in software development at the moment. For those who are not familiar with software development and still watching this video or this presentation, features, we think about features like when we do some changes to something that we currently have. For example, we have a current design of the house and we want to add something like, for example, new pattern on the roof, or maybe add more floors. So it's kind of like a new feature on top of what we already have. And branching means that when we start working, we have different tasks, like different features assigned maybe to different persons. And what they do a branch of the current version. They do their work on this branch. And yeah, then they will try to somehow merge these changes into the final version. So here we have Alice and Bob. Alice who works on the new pattern on the roof, and Bob try to add more floors to the house. So they created 2 branches. So once somebody is done, let's say Bob, then he needs actually to change the current version with his, to merge the changes to the current version. In this case, it's quite easy for Bob because he had the current version before. There was no changes to the current version, so he just substitutes his one with the current version with his one, and he's done. However, for Alice, it's a bit different because she didn't know that there were more floors to be added. She didn't have those changes from Bob. So now she has to somehow adjust what she has. But in this case, it seems to be not so hard. She was working only on the roof part, so she just applies those patterns to the current new version with Bob changes, and they get the final result. And yeah, it looks pretty well. So you can see that it kind of works. That's why it's popular and common. But I think there are still a few problems that we encounter maybe every day or every week. So one of the most obvious ones is integration risks. And this is something exactly that we already practically observed when the Alice had to add changes to the version that was updated by Bob, and she didn't have those changes. But it would be even more relevant if they would be working on something at the same time, like on the same part of the product. In this example, it's house design. So for example, Alice decided to put new wooden frames, but Bob at the same time was thinking about making the windows plastic ones, right? And then once Alice actually come after the Bob to merge her changes and realize that they're already plastic ones, she said like, okay, what I'm gonna do? Well, just all my work is gone basically for nothing. Yeah, so we know about this problem, and how we usually address it is that we just try to divide the product in some logical parts and find some those parts so that they are separated enough so that we avoid those conflicts in the future. But the more complex the product becomes, it becomes actually harder. And there is still a bit of a risk, even in this simple example. So we have the same task, similar tasks. Alice again working on the new pattern on the roof, and Bob, but Bob this time is adding more floors to the house. So it works so far so well. But then Alice realizes when everything is merged that basically this pattern doesn't make sense anymore because she didn't expect that there were going to be so many floors. And now this pattern, nobody going to see it anyway because the building is so big, right? So what was the point? And again, she kind of loses this huge time of work, maybe for something that doesn't make any sense. So there is still a risk this remains. Moreover, with this strategy, we have more problems. We have something like integration fear. And the problem is here is that once we encounter those conflicts that still and those risks, we can start to think, okay, like let's just Bob will do the whole thing, and then yeah, it will take him longer, but he will not do those mistakes, and we will not have those conflicts, right? He will be just doing this in those tasks in the sequence. However, the trade-off is that now it will take 2 months maybe or more, and we cannot actually parallelize the task. Then we have also refactoring fears that are kind of connected with those conflicts as well, because maybe Bob was thinking when he was adding more floors, he was thinking, well, I'm adding more windows as well, so maybe I could just pick up those 3 previous ones and update them with the new ones and, you know, have those plastics ones maybe. But he has some fears. He's not sure because what Alice is working on, and maybe he thinks it can create some conflict. Maybe it will not match, I don't know, new pattern on the roof, or something will not work out. So maybe, yeah, maybe I will not just do it. I will just leave it as it is, and maybe some other day. You have also sometimes ideas of big refactoring of the project. And for example, you want to use bricks instead of beton. And again, the problem comes to this big task that is very big to work for someone alone, and it will take a lot of time. And for refactoring, it's even worse because likely the client will not consider that it's actually useful because, I don't know, you will say, okay, we need this big refactoring, but it will take half of a year, right? And nobody gonna approve it. And why we cannot do it in parallel? Because we are afraid of the conflicts. Another problem is also lack of the common knowledge, because once we separate this product in several parts, then we have Alice that is all the time working on the roof. She does know a bit more about it. So we all the time give the tasks for her about the roof because, well, it kind of makes sense because she would probably make those faster than the Bob will do. But at the same time, we make the gap more and more larger because now Bob doesn't know anything about the roof, right? Same as Alice doesn't know about anything about the rest of the house. And very common problem is that somebody leaves the team, and then it's a big challenge to actually get back this knowledge and to find somebody who will be able to add those tasks, to handle those tasks. And another problem is about integration that happens only after several weeks, right? Maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, maybe more, we don't know. And it's puts, for example, a lot of pressure on the reviewer. Let's say Bob was working on something for 2 weeks, deadline is tomorrow, he's finally ready to ask for the review, he asks Alice, but like Alice says, okay, approved, because she cannot ask for any big changes because deadline is tomorrow, right? So she just say, okay, let's approve it. Let's maybe make a bit of like some cosmetical issues, but let's merge it, and let's, if there are some problems, we will just handle them after. But then we come back to those refactoring fears and everything, right? So yeah, those problems, as well as we have also, as long as if there is no deadline tomorrow, then this PR is very huge, and it can wait for another 2-3 weeks just to be merged because there will be some comments to address and everything, and so on. And then what happens is that Bob has to now jungle maybe several, not jungle, but has to work with several branches, with several those different changes, and all the time switch context from one to another. And it's at some point he just can has some burnout and just overwhelming for everyone, as well as for Alice to review those different branches before they merge. Okay, so do we try somehow to solve those problems? Yeah, I'm not sure from my own observations if we actually trying to solve those. We have something called we trying to remain we're trying to maintain the branches healthy. So we run some checks on that all the time. We try to integrate our changes with the current version that can be updated by somebody else. Here in this example, just 2 people, but if you have a team, you have maybe 5 or more people, and definitely you don't want to check on each of them when they actually update it. So you have something automatic happening all the time, and you can see those conflicts once they're in the current version, but you cannot see conflicts between different people before they actually update the main. And it seems like there is a common confusion that this is actually continuous integration, or at least partially continuous integration. That fact that we run in some scripts, and we have also a bit confusing names of those servers, for example, Circle CI, which kind of suggests that it's some kind of continuous integration, but at the essence, actually, it has nothing to do with continuous integration yet. It's good to have, but it's not there. It's not continuous integration. So what is continuous integration? Well, the main part, the main difference from the feature branches is that there is a constraint, and the constraint is about integrating your changes, like merging them to the current version at least daily. Sometimes people can do it more often, but like those one who preach for this continuous integration, they define that daily. It's like the least, the most reasonable, yeah, interval. Not most reasonable, but the minimal interval that you need to do to have actually continuous integration practice. So it's, yeah, can end up looking like this. So you have this current version, maybe with partial pattern on the roof, with the floor without windows, but at the same time, everyone knows what actually is going on. And so if you go back to those problems that I was describing before, Then, for example, if we have Alice that was like trying to put wooden frames on the windows, then you will see that she will just put one wooden frame at the moment. And then she will see that also Bob already put some plastic ones. And so they can resolve this conflict very early and just maybe lose one day of work instead of losing weeks, as they could do with feature branching. Yeah, another problem was this more subtle ones when we didn't, then we realized once we merged everything that actually this pattern on the roof doesn't make sense anymore. Well, here again, Alice can start already see that the house is growing, and she can start already have some concerns about it, and maybe ask more questions. Maybe ask what Bob actually doing. Is he doing like those 10 floors? Okay, then maybe she will think, maybe I need to think about new roof design or discuss it with the client, and we need to resolve this conflict again earlier. And again, we lose as minimal as possible of the work. Then we are not anymore afraid of working in the parallel on some things, because again, we are not afraid. We reduce the fear of the conflicts to minimum because we're integrating very fast. So if the conflict happens, then it's very easy to resolve. So we're not afraid of it anymore, and we can work more in parallel on different tasks. Same goes for the refactoring. Now Bob is not so afraid because he knows that he will integrate today, maybe today evening, tomorrow morning. So he just does this a little bit of refactoring, then checks with Alice, is it all right with her? Maybe she will update her designs. Maybe she will say that no, it doesn't work for her this way. But there is no fear of losing, again, weeks of work for nothing. Again, for the big refactoring, again, same as with integration, we are not afraid anymore to put several people on that. And actually, we can finally manage to tackle some big refactoring and some reasonable amount of time, and maybe even agree like the client to do that, because we're not afraid of the conflict so much anymore. And finally, we get better designs, better code base in the case of development. And common knowledge again also improves, because now we don't have an expert on the roofs, but we have, as we share the tasks more and more and communicate more in the way we work together, then of course Alice now knows a bit more about everything. So does Bob, and they also do less stressed reviews, and everything works better. So now we have integration daily, and if there is something like the reviews are not needed to be so stressful anymore. Bobs can all the time just try something today, then put it on review, and Alice will say, yeah, maybe it doesn't work this maybe let's try something else, or maybe you should revert it. But it's not such a big problem. It doesn't lose many weeks of work, and we also don't need to accept something that is not perfect just because there is a deadline tomorrow. So of course, maybe it sounded like all very, very good for continuous integration. Of course, there are some trade-offs, and it's just an alternative to the feature branching. There are some cases where feature branching makes more sense. It depends on the project and the team. One example would be open source development for sure. Feature branching works well because you need some time to wait for the review and address all the changes, and those branches will have to live long. But at the same time, I think those benefits that continuous integration brings, that I tried to describe today, I think they are definitely worth to just at least consider. And from my opinion, also, nothing stops to just try it on some actually still go with feature branches, but for example, if you assign several people to work on some feature, you could have this one branch, feature branch, and try continuous integration on it, and try to integrate daily and see, maybe it will work somehow better for you. Yeah. So that's the end of the presentation.